Welcome to my show. I'm a guest here. Her name is Stephanie Malia Krauss. Mrs. Stephanie, how are you doing, ma?
I am great. I'm so excited to join you today and to be able to be on this podcast.
Also, thank you so much for the time and the opportunity. Firstly, you are an author. You are also a mother and a long-time champion for children and adults. Can you please, Mrs. Stephanie, discuss more about yourself and how you are doing currently now, Mrs. Stephanie?
Sure. So I think there are a couple of things for listeners to know about me that really guide all of my work in writing. The first is that I'm a mom of two teenagers. And so when I am writing about young people in particular, I'm always thinking about my children and your children as our kids. And really, considering what their lived experience has been. So everything we're going to talk about today, it comes to you with the heart of being a mother. The second thing is that my training is as both a teacher and a social worker. And my work in education has spanned both domestically, I live in the United States, and also globally. So I was a teacher for the littlest kids, 4 and 5 year olds, when they were just getting started. And then I taught sort of upper primary school, 10 and 11-year-olds. I was a soccer or a football coach. And I ran a secondary school that was on the university campus. But there were so many social and economic and environmental issues that impacted my students in the classroom and impacted my fellow teachers. And so I left education to pursue a social work degree to understand those bigger forces that affect who we are. And during that time, I had really profoundly impactful experiences working with colleagues who were teaching in East Africa, in Malawi and Zambia, and also with colleagues who were studying social work and social welfare in Asia. And so while I haven't lived outside of the domestic US in some time, I am so excited to be on your show thinking about the global reach that you have because kids are kids everywhere and humans are humans everywhere. And these essentials that we're going to talk about today, they matter in whatever country or culture or context that you're born in.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Stephanie. As a mother, carrying every single children as one and to actually give a sense of explanation in regards to the education experience you've had is very much beautiful. And you also transform that into a book as well. How We Thrive. Can you please, Mrs. Stephanie, discuss more about the book? And do you also plan to write more books in the coming future, Mrs. Stephanie?
Yeah, so How We Thrive, Caring for Kids and Ourselves in a Changing World is a book about collective care. It is a call to rehuman how we're living, how we're learning, and how we're working. So, rehumaning is a new word. It's a concept that I coined that was in response to what I was hearing from people all around the globe who are caring for kids. And that is that we're overwhelmed, we're overloaded, we're so tired and so stressed out from a combination of things. The world seems increasingly frightening and troubling. We have the timeless troubles and challenges that we've always had. We've always had poverty and abuse and economic issues. But we also have these timely troubles, these things that are new in this particular moment in human history that make hard lives harder. And even like the good times seem overshadowed by worry or overwhelm. And so I wrote How We Thrive to really help us understand why it feels so hard to just human right now, to just be and to be able to live and learn and work at an appropriate pace, to not always feel so stretched to the max, to not have to live in constant fear and anxiety, and to help us in a world where our normal is no longer natural, try to reclaim what makes humans so incredibly strong and so incredibly powerful. And this is back to the heart of a mother. As I look at my own children and what they have endured, if we look kids across the globe, the last 10 to 15, 20 to 25 years, they're looking at the possibility of living longer than previous generations just because science and healthcare and technology have advanced. But they're already tired. They're already, you know, worn down, the wear and tear of life. So I wrote How We Thrive in an effort to get us the science and the strategies and the stories that we need to really have a roadmap for how is it possible to thrive even when the weather of our lives feels very dangerous? And how can we end experiences where we're fully alive and awake in the world? And I'll say that, like, my biggest hope for my own children and for kids anywhere, it's also my hope for my friends and my family, is that we have good lives. It doesn't mean that it won't be challenging, but I want it to be good. And so when we talk about how we thrive, when I think about what thriving means, it is the ability to endure our challenges and to enjoy our lives. In terms of books, this is the third in just about 6 years. So my first book came out and it was called Making It. And it was about what young people need to be ready for a rapidly changing world. But it came out at the height of the pandemic. And so here I was talking about the future, and we were all at home scared for the present. And people would learn that I was a social worker, and I was doing a book tour meeting just like we are today on Zoom because I couldn't go anywhere. And they would say, "Hey, we're afraid that our kids are going to burn out or give up before they get to that future." And so I wrote my second book 2 years later because I felt that worry in my bones. I was also worried that my kids were going to give up before they got to this future adulthood. And so Whole Child, Whole Life was the next book. And that was really looking at what are the things that matter across our entire lifetime that support well-being. Things like being able to meet your basic needs or feel rooted and connected, being able to have healthy relationships. So I had these two books that came out. And then, what happened was I had this picture of what young people need to be ready for a world that's often unjust and unfair, and a book about what they need to be well. But the problem was that every time that I met with a group of teachers or youth workers, parents, pastors, coaches, counselors, I would survey them and I would ask, how are the children? How are your families? And how are you? And even though we had these guides for how to be ready and how to support our well-being, everyone still said we're overwhelmed, we're overloaded, we're stressed, and we're tired. And so that's why I wrote How We Thrive. So to answer your question, I will keep writing books as long as there are more questions to answer.
Exactly, as a mother and also someone who cares for teenagers and also the young ones that are out there, it shows how challenging it is as at this time. I am so glad that you are in the position to actually see these issues in our time, most especially for our young people, and also looking for ways one can enlighten them to understand better and also see how they can thrive and also become more better in the life they've come for. And I would also like to drive to the point of the area where your book explored 14 timeless human essentials like play, wonder, belonging, and creativity. Why do you think this often treated as optional in modern life when they are actually vital to our well-being, Mrs. Stephen?
So let's pull back. So when I started researching How We Thrive, I went out and spoke to over 100 scientists and experts across human development, evolution, so the sort of biology of what it means to be human, the psychology of what it means to be human, and then all of these people who work with kids every day. And what became very clear is that humans have been around walking and talking in the ways that we are now for 300,000 years. And across the millennia, we have always relied on certain capacities, what I call human essentials in the book, in order to be healthy and happy and whole. And the problem is that right now it is more likely that those essentials are restricted or even denied than ever before. And I think the encouraging thing to know is that it seems like if we look through history, that we've only been living so fast and so frantic. We've only been restricting these essentials so much for about 1% of the 1% of human history. So the Industrial Revolution changed the world, and many of our foragers became farmers, and then farmers became factory workers about 300 years ago. And so that's 1% of the 300,000. But then you think about our life since the pandemic. The last few years have felt especially tough and especially scary and especially fast. The rise of addictive technology and AI. AI has life-saving qualities, but also life-threatening qualities. The rise of increased violence and instability and uncertainty. And then just the constancy of not having the time and money that we need and feeling so busy. Those forces, what I talk about in the book is dangerous weather. They pull us further and further away from these human essentials because while we have the capacities, we need the right conditions to nourish them. And so the capacities, they break into body, mind, heart, and spirit. You just named a couple. So like play and wonder. In a world that prioritizes productivity and performance over personhood and play, it's very difficult outside of really young children to prioritize play because it's not valued in the ways that it was. Now, for communities that are still close to hunter-gatherer communities, they're more tribal, they're more rural. What we see is that young people tend to spend about a third of their day playing because playing prepares us for life. It also helps us process life and it gives us pleasure. And so what's so interesting about this is that we actually see that play is present for any social animal. You think about like I have dogs in my house and they're playful. They constantly want to play, but rats play. I have a picture of hamsters playing in the book. But when they're deprived of play, these animals in studies, they get sick and sometimes they die. And so we're deprived of, again, just looking at play for a moment.
Mm.
Play, scientists have found, is pre-verbal. We're born knowing how to do it. So that's the thing with these human essentials. These are the things, our sort of natural superpowers. They're totally free because we're born with them. Every human, any community, any country, we're born
Exactly.
with the capacity to play. And when we play, our life gets better. When we play, we're healthier. When we play, we are more prepared, we are more protected, we have more pleasure. When we wonder, which takes time, we're able to connect with the world and see that we're a part of something bigger than ourselves. Wonder is a gateway to spirituality because it allows us to see the bigness and the beauty of the world around us. And wonder can lead to being and having ideas that spark learning, that spark incredible work and innovation and inventiveness. But wonder can also lead to awe, which helps
Mm.
us heal and have hope. And so each of these essentials, they feel like in a modern world that's so keen on speed and productivity and getting ahead, they feel like a waste of time. And yet they're what matter most. And I think a big part of why I wanted to interview so many scientists, even though I have this background in education and human development, I wanted the people who knew the hard science, the biology and psychology of these essentials, was because we don't learn about the science of things like wonder or play or creativity. We can feel in our spirit that they're important. We can long for them. We can engage in play. Um, I'll tell you just briefly. So, right before we got on this call, I was driving. And so, we're recording this right before the Easter holiday. And
Yes.
I saw that there was a home. I'm not sure what it's called in Nigeria, but here it's called like a nursing home. So, it's a home where people, when they're much older, go for medical assistance and they live there for assisted care. And they were outside doing an Easter egg hunt. They were looking for eggs and candy in the grass, and these elders were playing. And you could see the smiles and the laughter, and you could see that it was causing them to look younger and happier and healthier than just being in a facility. You know, here they were outside and they were engaged fully. And it's a reminder that that's how we're supposed to human.
Honestly speaking, Mrs. Stephen, I honestly want to thank you for the beautiful. As children, as adults, we are all entitled to play. It is not absurd, or I would say it's not restricted for anyone, because playing give us the connection. It gives us that arising love, and also giving making us to be in a position to release every single pain and every single situation we have in our lives. And I completely agree with you during the time of COVID, because it looked as if we haven't healed right from that moment, because those moments show how locked down we were inside all those times. And for us to come out now, there is more focus on the digital aspects. We do not come out to play and do every single thing that actually comes to us naturally, which we have to acknowledge and also learn as well in the life we find ourselves. So, from the bottom of my heart, Mrs. Stephen, I sincerely appreciate you for the wonderful insight and also the story you brought out in regards to what you said earlier. I would just want to quickly drive to the point of one of the most important aspects, also, Mrs. Stephanie, belonging. Because most of the time that we do know now that this world is more isolated, belonging is one of the most important parts. I think is more important for us to actually adapt in the life we find ourselves. So belonging is one of the deepest human needs. What do you think happens to individual and also community when that sense of belonging is missing, Mrs. Stephanie?
So let's first look at this from the human essential context, the biology and psychology piece. So when you think about belonging, it's our capacity to go and find the people who we connect with and our communities, because that helps keep us alive and that also helps us to thrive. So the way that I think about what belonging is belonging is feeling known, feeling welcome, and feeling wanted. And when we feel known and welcome and wanted in the wonderful, positive ways, then we are safer and we are freer to explore who we want to be, what we want to do. We can be the best versions of ourselves. Now, there's also such a thing as false belonging, which is when you are with people and you don't have the choice to be with them, but they're toxic. You're connected to them, you're in their community or you're in their family, and you don't, but the key is, they might say, like, you're a part of this family or you belong to this community. But the question is, it's real belonging if you feel known, welcome, and wanted. And so the opposite of belonging is exclusion. You're not welcome here. And estrangement. We are casting you out because of who you are, because of who you love, because of what's going on in your life, for whatever reason. And what we know from the science is that when somebody feels excluded or estranged, they're cast out, it causes a physical rise of all kinds of alarm bells. Our whole body goes on alert and blares, something's terribly wrong. Something is terribly wrong. This is not the way it's supposed to be. And so exclusion and estrangement, very similar to loneliness, cause physical symptoms. It makes us sick because if you go back in human history, other animals, other species had strength, speed, stealth. We had our capacity to be social. It was our ability to come together as clans and bands of people that kept us alive and allowed us to create new things, right? From fire to homes to jobs to everything that we see today. And so it's wild to actually think that the very things that we've created because of our advances are now sometimes the things that keep us away from what we need, right? It's just, oh, it's a wild thing. But here's what to know about belonging. There's increasing studies and science coming out to suggest that belonging might be one of the most important things for our physical and mental health out of everything. And it also is key to learning and work. So if someone is listening today and they feel like, I don't belong at work, I don't belong somewhere else. Or if you're raising a child and your child's coming home and being bullied, for example, I'm telling you, that is worth taking serious action, even if it feels risky. Well, how will I pay my bills if I have to go look for a new job? Or what will the head of school say if I ask to change my child's class? But the thing is with belonging is that it is at its best life-giving. It pours into the best parts of being alive and human, but at its worst, exclusion and estrangement, including bullying, very life threatening because we're not made to live outside of community.
Mrs. Stephanie, to be honest with you, I sincerely appreciate you for the way you actually explained it very much better because every single thing that we actually need to do in life, we do know we have to go outside the box. We have to strive. We have to do a lot of things to actually make us grow and also become more better. But belonging actually plays a very, very huge role in our life. And you said it, where we are wanted and where they need us are a sense of belonging. The opposite of it is we saying that they do not want us and we do not belong there. So we have to be very, very clear on a sense of belonging because this actually play a very huge role for us to feel more safer and to live more freely as well because we know people do care about us and we have people who are going to back us off in times of circumstances and situations as well. So I sincerely appreciate you for giving the sense of clarification because in our life today, we do know that a lot of things, as you said, has overshadowed us. What we've created and now what we focus on the more. And there is no freedom for one to do a lot of things that will help the society at large. But despite all the situation, if we can try our best to build every single thing and also create the sense of awareness, just as you are doing to most, especially the teenagers and the children, it plays a huge role in their nearest future, for them to grow older and also understand better, for them to not also fall into the trajectory of falling into the pit of depression or anxiety, because that is the end point of every single area that we are currently in life. And also, Mrs. Stephanie, there is a question I also normally ask during the end of the show. From our forefathers, from our ancestors, there are a lot of beautiful things that do exist during our forefathers' time that is missing in our time today. If there is anyone or anything you would like to bring back to our time today, Mrs. Stephanie, what do you think that thing will be, Mrs. Stephanie?
So I am native Hawaiian. We're people who are an island people. We're wayfinding people. And at the end of How We Thrive, I talk about traveling back to where my ancestors are from, a
Oh,
small
sorry.
rural island called Molokai. So in at the end of How We Thrive, I talk about going back to Molokai, which is the island where my ancestors, my grandmothers, great grandmothers, great great grandmothers came from. It's a small rural island. And when I arrived at this place, this sacred place of my ancestors, it was like the oldest cells in my body woke up and said, "This is home." And the thing that I learned while I was on Molokai is that in ancient Hawaii, they used to divide the island up into slices that ran from the mountain to the sea. So Mauka is mountain to Makai, the water. And every family or clan received, lived on one of these slices of land called an ahupua'a. And it was a full ecosystem. The idea was that everything that they needed to survive and thrive. It's an island. So the weather did come, as had Hua'a suffers from bad weather, others come and help contribute. And so when I think about what we need more than anything, it is each other. It is an ahupua'a system of understanding that we are born Mauka to Makai, mountain to the seas. We are born with 14 essentials that are going to help us navigate the world as it is, and also not only endure challenge, but enjoy this life. Have a good life, no matter what moment we're born in, what community we're born in, what family we're born in. These things, sleep and play and wonder and creativity, they're gifts given to us by birth. They are our birthrights. It is the responsibility of every person to protect those birthrights, to protect those essentials, to nourish the ahupua'a. And when one person's ahupua'a ecosystem is suffering, then we have to show up and share care. We have to contribute to it. And so, what I would just offer as a last sort of idea is this idea of rehumaning, that it is time for us to actively practice protecting these human essentials. And if we are in positions of power over kids or settings or systems or people, that we need to do even more, that rehumaning is an individual act, but it's also an act that happens not just with self, but at the setting and system level. And so, my last thing that I would say is let's, this is only 1% of the 1% of human history that it's felt so tough to human. So let's not live like that. Like, who said we have to live like that? Let's start rehumaning our lives, because rehumaning is how we thrive.
You've said it all, Mrs. Stephanie. With the whole explanation, you've said it all that we need each other. Despite every single thing that we are surrounded with, despite every single thing that we do see every single day, despite every single activities that are right at the front of us for us to actually deal with, we need each other more than anything. And for us to come together and show ourselves the empathy, will make the world thrive and also make the world better place at large. Also, Mrs. Stephanie, I want to use this opportunity to thank you for the time, the opportunity for having this profound conversation in regards to adults, teenagers, and even children for them to understand the value of humanity and also human connection. Thank you so much, Mrs. Stephanie.
It was such a gift to be with you today. Thank you very much for having me.
All right, have a wonderful day, Mrs. Stephanie. Bye bye.
Bye. Take care.